O God, who before the passion of your only begotten Son revealed his glory upon the holy mountain, grant to us that we, beholding by faith the light of his countenance, may be strengthened to bear our cross and be changed into his likeness from glory to glory. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Now you might have missed that very familiar phrase in today's collect, to bear our cross. It's almost a cliche these days, bearing our cross. It's like a problem we can't solve. You know, most of the time it's not a cross at all, just an inconvenience that we're complaining about. But that doesn't mean it's easy. And I remember one day my family and I were walking home from church many years ago, and my youngest brother, who was probably about 5 years old at the time, he was way back, trudging along. You know, his eyes were downcast, moving slowly, muttering to himself. And my mother decided to stop and wait for him. And when she stopped, she heard him saying, "I walk and walk so many miles. I get so tired, I can't believe it." He was saying that at 5 years old. My father liked those words so much that he had them printed up to hang on the wall. And he didn't do this to help the little guy bear his cross, but because it was a haiku, like 17 syllables, like a Japanese poem. And so, of course, the rest of his older kids turned it into a little song to tease our little brother with. And none of this helped him to carry the burden that he bore of being the youngest in our family. So I think, Matthew, we better listen very carefully to what Matthew is saying in the years to come. And today is the Sunday right before Lent, and it's the last Sunday in Epiphany, also known as Transfiguration Sunday, and it's a turning point in our church life together. After 8 weeks of Epiphany, the season of light, now it's time for us to carry our crosses during Lent. Are we ready for it? I'm not sure that I am, that's for sure. But ready or not, here we are. We're about to set off on this path that's not going to end just because we get a little tired. And the Transfiguration was a decisive moment in Jesus' life, too. He's been on the road the whole Gospel of Matthew. He's been healing and preaching and debating with the Pharisees and the scribes. And now at the end of the chapter 16 in Matthew, he finally tells everybody what's going to happen next. After the Transfiguration, Jesus is going to leave his home base up north in Galilee, and for the first time bring his ministry south into hostile ground, Judea, for this ultimate confrontation with the authorities. And for the disciples too, it was a big time. They finally get to hear why Jesus has come in the first place. In the verses just before today's reading, Jesus tells them he's going to suffer and be killed and then be raised again. And they don't like this at all. Peter tells them, "This must not happen, Lord." And Jesus replies with that famous put down, "Get behind me, Satan. You are setting your mind on human and not on divine things. If any want to become my followers, they must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." Pretty scathing words for Peter and a tough challenge to the other disciples, that's for sure. But Jesus hints that something better is coming. That some of them are even going to see the Son of Man coming into his kingdom. And that's what Peter and the Zebedee boys, John and James, they get to go up to the mountain. And they see Jesus transfigured there, right in front of them, speaking with Moses and Elijah. But once again, Peter doesn't get it. He offers, I'll make you some houses for all three of you guys. But just to make it very clear, God himself speaks directly to Peter and the other two "This is my Son, the beloved, listen to him," as if to say, "You dopes, don't you know who this is?" And they're, of course, terrified. Who wouldn't be, hearing the voice of God? But after they throw themselves onto the ground, Jesus reaches out and touches them. God is here. God is here right now. Emmanuel, God is with us. And yet his Son has the human touch. The touch of reassurance that will sustain everyone, all the disciples, on the long journey to Golgotha and the crucifixion and beyond. Not too many of us have a vision of the glory of God, I would guess, especially these days, or hear God talk directly to us. But it's not just a few who witness revelation. And we all have these moments of insight every now and then, when everything collapses into 1 second. But that 1 second holds everything in our past lives, and it points ahead to everything that we will be in the future. Clearly, the day we were born is one of those days, and the time we die is another, a moment of revelation to us. But of course, we can't really tell anybody else about those moments. But there are others, too. Epiphanies, as James Joyce called them. Epiphanies that are different for each of us, but they're just as important. And these moments can transfix us. They transfigure us. Perhaps it's the moment when you first hold your newborn child, or when you're holding the hand of a loved one who is dying, when you feel called to do something completely new, something difficult, something dangerous, even impossible, but something that's, is absolutely necessary. And when you meet someone whose presence changed you so much that your life would never be the same. You see, what happened to Jesus on that mountain can actually happen to us, too. The Greek word that Matthew uses for transfigure is metamorphosis, transformation. And it means change, both outward, when our appearance alters in a way that others can see, and inward, a change of character, when our very nature is transformed. Now, it's pretty hard to look at yourself and know that you're changing. But I know that St. Jude's is changing right now. These buildings and the people who come here to worship and to learn and to welcome the stranger into our midst, all will be very different in the years to come. Will we be ready? Will we be ready to embrace something new? Will we be able to walk with Jesus and see him in the face of our neighbor? But I think the answer is we will, because God comes into all of our lives at unpredictable times, so we better be ready. But Lent is a time for renewal, a time of change, a time when we can prepare to be disciples. It's also an anxious time, too, because it's not a time for business as usual, but Lent is meant for metamorphosis. And we all need to pray for the strength to transform ourselves and our lives. We certainly can pray, and I'd encourage you to pray, that someday we'll be changed into the likeness of Jesus. But first, we have to listen. We have to listen when Jesus calls us to take up our cross. And we need to follow the same path that he took.